I'm Jenny Lane. I'm a clinical research fellow at the University of Oxford, and I won the Odyssey Titan Award last year for clinical application. As an EHDEN and Odyssey enthusiast, I'm here to tell you why you should consider applying to map your data to the common data model in this open call in order to become part of this great community. If we want to reach our goal and maximise the potential of real-world evidence, we really need to begin a journey where patient-level data in a source system is ultimately linked to a patient-level data in a common data model. And this can ultimately enable reliable evidence to be generated. In short, we need to create a reproducible data flow with documented manipulations and procedures and an automated end-to-end analysis code. And we also need to work from a common data model and a standardized vocabulary. This is a two-step process. Standardization before analysis, that includes an ETL, an extraction, transform, and load, and source code is separated from analysis. And that subsequently enables the reuse of data and analysis in future. You may say, well, how is this not happening at the moment? How is this not current practice? And I think the electric plug is a great analogy for us to serve how complex healthcare data at the moment is seen across Europe. Here we have one plug that works in one country, and across the rest of Europe, we find that there are many different electrical plugs used. So, what will it take to create a large-scale federated network across such a diverse and broad region? Well, we need data interoperability. In other words, we need to harmonise the different structures and terminologies and languages that are used. We need a standardised analytical pipeline. We need data network services that are needed to build an active data network that answers clinically important questions in a timely manner. And we need a strong community mindset that covers all of Europe and collaboratively works together to improve patient care. And these are the many challenges and opportunities that led IMI to create EHDEN. So the mission of EHDEN is to develop a federated network that is standardized to a common data model that is more smart, and it manages to share research data and methodologies and expands education in open science and collaboration. Its vision is that it aspires to be a trusted ecosystem that improves our decision-making, our outcomes, and our care. And it's based on values of open science, of quality and inclusiveness, and of strong community with education and sustainability at its core. So let's take a deeper look at what EHDEN is all about. As you can see, the EHDEN Consortium, which is being jointly led by the Erasmus Medical Centre and Janssen, and the 22 partners, represents a collective strength that will serve the creation of a federated network really well. It contains the infrastructure that is created through an EU-wide federated architecture. It has privacy baked into its design and data harmonization using the common data model. And is also based upon training and certifying SMEs in order to assist with the process. It's based on research and outcomes where we have cases to evaluate the value of the EHDEN federated network. And it's based on collaboration to ensure that there are consistent methodologies used. And the collaboration is also within EHDEN, but also outwardly within the international global Odyssey Research Network. And it's also about incorporating the ITROM health outcome standards that have been generated. In terms of education and community, the establishment of the EHDEN Academy is really leading the way for this. And there is enabling the expansion of the Odyssey network in Europe. And the collaboration is also enabling a collective memory to be generated for research use cases that can assist people in future. This diagram shows how a federated data network happens. As you can see on the left side of the diagram, there are three examples of individual sites. Each of them have their healthcare data stored in their local database, and each site has mapped their database to the common data model called OMOP to ensure that it harmonizes with the rest of the infrastructure and the rest of the network partners. Each site has the applications in place to interrogate and analyze their own data, or to execute an analysis script that is developed centrally by other EHDEN network partners. Even though the individual sites are not physically connected to a central platform, information can be shared through the EHDEN portal, and this is a secured environment that is only accessible to data partners. In EHDEN, a tool called Atlas is used, which is already available as part of OMOP. It can be used to define virtual cohorts using combinations of in- and exclusion criteria. Several routine analyses come pre-packaged for download from the portal so that they can be made and run and executed locally. Study-specific scripts can also be developed and be made available in the same way, but accessibility will be restricted to those partners participating in a particular research question. The scripts can be able to accommodate all state-of-the-art analytical programming languages such as Python, R, SAS, and SQL. There's also support for big data tools and machine learning enabled. The portal itself will be accessible for the partners through a dedicated password-protected EHDEN website. And as you can see, the main point is that local data stays local at all times. The pre-developed analysis scripts are run locally and only the results are transferred to the EHDEN portal. Governance rules apply, and you can also decide on each research question whether you want to participate or not. The real benefits from a federated network is that the data will still remain in control of the data owner, and it still will locally apply all of its legal and ethical approvals. No patient-level data will leave the owner's site, and analysis is brought to the data rather than creating a central data repository. And this is enabled by the use of a common data model, allowing that harmonization and allowing for efficient searches and analyses to be run across multiple data sites. And whilst this requires close collaboration between data owners, it really builds on the trust and that feeling of community within the network. This infographic shows us a little bit more about how the common data model is based. You can see that there are standardized clinical data, healthcare system data, health economics, standardized derived elements, and then metadata on top, which then all come together to make a standardized vocabulary. It's patient-centric, it's extendable, and it's specifically built for analytics and to enable that harmonization between the different, very heterogeneous members of the network. So what's in it for you? Why should you join? And I think this is, it's just got so many different elements to it that make it a win-win situation for everyone. You get the financial support and the technical support of the community, not just from generating that ETL process, but also then when you get into starting to run your analysis and putting forward questions. And you can be part of the scientific collaboration, really pushing forward the boundaries and thinking towards the future of healthcare. It gives you a far more increased visibility through your collaboration and being part of both a European and a global effort. And these papers are leading to larger academic impact than can be possible from one centre alone. It gives us transparency and a reproducibility through the principles of an open science network. And it gives you far more analytical capabilities through using these large-scale analytics that are available. The EHDEN Academy enables people who have had no prior experience in the network to really get up to speed very quickly. And the Academy, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later, is just really going from strength to strength and contains a lot of different facets to it in order for people to develop their skills. It gives you the ability to faster perform on a study and really support decision-making processes. So the call will work in terms of it being an open call for data partners. First of all, it's tailored for your project objectives and the sustainability. It will then be evaluated by the criteria that have been set and by the data source prioritization committee. At that stage, data partners can then choose from a variety of SMEs that have become available and are certified as enabling you to harmonize your data. The SMEs are paid via the grants from the Harmonisation Fund, and then this begins a real cycle of workshopping, evaluating your source data, sharing your mapping process, and then auditing that mapping that has occurred. And the real encouragement here is to be open and to participate within the community in order to share your experiences of this process, gain learning from others, and then to be able to really start participating in the research studies. And alongside that, there's of course the EHDEN Academy to help build methodological strength at the same time. So far, there have been 3 calls and there are 61 data partners. And you can see so far the countries that we've got participating. And if you're watching this now and you live in one of the grey countries and you have data from one of those countries that are not yet a data partner, we'd really, really like to bring you in, especially not just that. Obviously, of course, people from countries who are already members, we'd like to see grow in strength, because it's about the heterogeneity of both the data source and also the number of data partners and the variety of countries that come into EHDEN that will provide its strength going forward. So the timeline, well, here we are in the end of April 2021, and the call opened earlier this month. We've got a couple of weeks to go while the data partner call is open. And then there will be a subsequent data partner call later this year. The SMEs were required to participate and put forward their bids to be involved earlier in 2021. And what will happen after the April 2021 open call is that the evaluation will happen after the deadline closes in May, with agreements being sent out in June and July. The linking up with an SME to do or to assist you with bringing your data into the common data model happening towards the end of July and in August, and then the beginning of harmonisation happening in the autumn time. Of course, as we've written here, timelines are provisional, and we live in very interesting times at the moment, and certainly we all have to work towards where we'll be this time in autumn. And I certainly think, having looked back on what we did in 2020 in EHDEN and Odyssey, we certainly wouldn't have thought we would have been here right now. It's important to remember what the eligibility is, and of course there is the call description here, which goes into more of the detail, but the overarching themes and principles are that the data partners need to be the legal custodian of the data, and it has to be one of the approved data source types, and the data itself should contain exposures, procedures and outcomes. Data sources for which the ETL is already publicly available are not considered for this activity, as it's understood that the mapping process is already underway for them. And this is really to prevent multiple data partners applying for standardization of the same data source in order to prevent work being duplicated. Each application will be individually reviewed by at least 2 committee members, and really looking into the impact of the data and what can the data really bring, what is the added value to the network of the data partner themselves, and how ready is that data partner to participate within the EHDEN ecosystem. As I said earlier, of course, all applications are welcome, but if you are representing a country that is not yet or minimally represented in the EHDEN network, you're especially welcome to put forward your bid. And data sets with data that are showing or containing the data that is given here are particularly welcome as well. So those are for cancer, especially for solid tumours, for diabetes, and data sets that include patient-reported outcomes, but not exclusively contain patient-reported outcomes, are also very welcome, in addition to those that include claims or resource utilisation. So there's 17 million in total. These can be for different mapping exercises. That can be full mapping, mapping extension, or for validation. All of these processes are valuable elements to the EHDEN community and will be considered. As I said earlier, the EHDEN Academy is a great institution. It's an e-learning environment that's being developed by the EHDEN project, and it really aims to train all of your stakeholders to use the tools and processes that are being adopted. It's to enable course development on the common data model and to give a rich variety of e-learning about the Odyssey community. And this whole academy is being developed in a Moodle and is hosted in the Amazon AWS cloud. As you can see here, there is a huge variety of courses available in the EHDEN Academy. If you're more clinical like me, you may be looking towards the green. My personal favourite is the population level estimation, although I have been involved in a little bit of patient level prediction, which is, again, all very clever stuff. And some of the phenotype definition, characterisation, evaluation are some of the things that became key in our efforts in the COVID-19 study-a-thon. The elements in blue are talking really about the methodology of how we use Atlas, Odyssey in a box, and how standardized vocabularies are used, and generally about how the network is based. Of course, the ones in purple are really for where you start at the beginning. There are more and more courses being added continually, and certainly throughout 2021, it will gain more courses to be added to that. This is the EHDEN portal, and again, as a data geek, I think this is really exciting. This is a plan, and its objective really is to show metadata for all of the EHDEN participants. And again, this is not local level, patient level data, but this is giving you just an overview, just giving you a taste of all of the participants. And eventually all data sources will end up in here. And the idea of this really is to be something that you can look through as you're thinking about your research ideas, thinking what's really possible and how different data partners can contribute different things. So I'm certainly watching this space to see this develop more. I think ultimately observational research promises to complement experimental research in ways that previously had not been thought possible. And this is mainly by providing large, diverse populations that just wouldn't be feasible in a clinical setting. These really beautiful graphs are from work from George Hripsak and colleagues, where they looked at treatment pathways for 3 common conditions, as you can see here. And all the data was mapped to the common data model. Patient privacy was maintained throughout using the distributed model and the federated network analysis, and the results then aggregated centrally. And the pathways revealed that the world is moving towards a more consistent therapy over time across diseases and across locations. And this is the kind of work that is only possible by using large-scale international observational research. Certainly, the last year has given us all huge challenges, but one of the hugely positive things that came out of it was EHDEN and Odyssey's ability to consider research questions surrounding COVID-19. The study-a-thon that started in March last year has continued to generate work that continues to be ongoing. Now we're in April 2021. We started off by doing literature review and really thinking about what we had at the time, which of course at that point was really when the pandemic was in its infancy, generating phenotypes, so generating cohorts of patients, and really thinking about how we wanted to design our studies, thinking about how to build the blocks of studies that would be methodologically sound. Characterization was work to compare COVID to influenza, to think about all the different populations that are impacted. So a particular example given here is how COVID-19 has affected children. And the work that I was more involved in was the population effect estimation, where we looked at the historical safety of certain drugs that at the time in March 2020 were becoming increasingly used in an attempt to increase survival. And that certainly was a huge undertaking, and also was hugely satisfying to be able to work across countries, across across huge geographical areas in order to determine whether this was safe or not. And I think being able to see that our work was published in an open science manner. So all of our code, all of our results, and the final document was published within medRxiv, and then to see the European Medicines Agency then change their emergency authorization based upon our work was a hugely satisfying piece of research to be part of, and certainly, I think it's one of these things where you realise the value of what EHDEN is trying to put forward, and really what is possible as we move forward in this post-pandemic era. And again, the folks who focused on patient-level prediction had also generated a full model to look at the risk of admission, of relapse, of requiring intensive care, or dying within the pandemic. And again, this is hugely valuable work. Huge lessons were learned through this intense period of collaboration. But I really hope that this will take us forward into some really new, exciting research as we emerge from the pandemic and our focus on COVID. So I hope that's convinced you. Here's where you can get a little bit more information. And ultimately, I hope to be collaborating with you in future, and I would love to see what your data holds.